go back and look at your World War I notes. They're from late November, early December. We talked about the events that led up to that. I'm not going to go into huge detail. The point of this is a review. It's not to go over the entire course in a few minutes. But the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, the dominoes that began to fall with countries declaring war on each other and their allies having to declare war on those countries, and how that led to World War I. United States not in World War I from the very beginning. Look at Germany's aggression and how that brought the United States into the war. The Zimmerman telegram, things like that. And that's World War I. Kind of as a side note, there are sometimes, well, there probably will be questions about the Russian Revolution. During World War I, Russia pulled out of the war because they had the Russian Revolution in the middle of World War I. The Tsar Nicholas, not doing a good enough job taking care of his people at home. Poor peasants, poor workers, rose up, overthrew him. Eventually they execute him and the rest of his family, and they establish a communist government under Vladimir Lenin. So that's the Russian Revolution. Took place during World War I. That's why Russia wasn't around at the end of the war. Standard 6 is analyzing the effects of the First World War. So its main focus is the Treaty of Versailles. What happened after World War I? How was Germany punished? How was Austria-Hungary broken up? How was the Ottoman Empire broken up? Obviously a heavy focus on Germany, since that's gonna so greatly influence the events leading up to World War II. But look at the specifics of the Treaty of Versailles. What was Germany held responsible for? Paying reparations, reducing its army, reducing its air force, losing quite a bit of territory. Things of that nature are Standard 6. 9 sample questions out of 41 dealing with the effects of World War I. Standard 7, when we did this section of notes, now we're into second semester, this was the rise of the dictators section. This was the rise of totalitarian governments after World War I. So you're going to look at the 1920s, the 1930s, Hitler's rise to power in Germany, Mussolini in Italy, Franco in Spain, Stalin taking over after Lenin's death in the Soviet Union, things of that nature. The Great Depression, how it affected how Germany was never really recovered after World War I, and other countries had their difficulties as well. Standard 8 is the causes and consequences of World War II. Again, we spent weeks talking about this, so trying to sum this up quickly here for a summary video is a little difficult. 10 of the 41 sample questions were about World War II. Again, Hitler coming to power in Germany and his aggressive moves, putting troops in the Rhineland, unifying with Austria. Things that were explicitly forbidden in the Treaty of Versailles he was doing. Taking the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, the appeasement, Neville Chamberlain trying to work out a deal, telling Hitler, you can have that if you keep your word. Hitler making a deal with Stalin not to go to war with the Soviet Union, and then later stabbing him in the back. His invasion of Poland in 1939, which started World War II. Japanese aggression in Asia. Just so much information on World War II, so go ahead and take a look at that. If you have to check the textbook at home, look at the chapter on World War II. Just skim through it. I'm not saying the night before the test, read the entire chapter again. That might be too much too late, but go over your notes, try to remember the basics of that. When we did the study guide, I have the study guide here in my hand, the World War II section, we did 2.5 pages of notes on it. I'm trying to sum it up quickly. Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, Battle of Britain, Total War, the Axis powers, Japan, Germany, Italy, Battle of Midway, the turning of the tide in the Pacific, German defeat at North Africa, invasion of Italy, working our way towards Berlin, the Soviets coming from the east, British, French, and Americans coming from the west. Dropping of the atomic bombs, why did Truman decide that he had to do that? He thought it was a better idea than a full-scale invasion of Japan. Japanese surrender, Hitler's suicide, things of that nature. World War II. Standard 9 is the events after World War II. So you're talking peace treaties, you're talking Cold War, It's again a large standard. It says students analyze the international developments in the post-World War II world. 6 of the 41 released questions on the website were about the events after World War II. Cold War, the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. Yes, they were allies, friends during World War II. After World War II, not so much. Look at how Russia, the Soviet Union, wanted to treat Eastern Europe, and how the United States and Britain wanted Eastern Europe to be treated. The Marshall Plan, how the United States wants to rebuild Europe so that they don't have another world war in the future, but the Soviet Union won't let Eastern Europe take any of that money. Proxy wars, looking at how communism was trying to spread in Greece and Turkey, how the United States gave aid to those countries to keep communism out. China falling to communism in 1949. The Korean War, North Koreans pushing us all the way down to the southern tip. We push them all the way back to the northern part of the peninsula. The Chinese Red Army invades, and there's this stalemate back and forth for a couple of years until the peace treaty, well, it was not even really a peace treaty for that, until the war ended. Vietnam War, an embarrassment, for the United States, unable to keep Vietnam from falling to communism. Fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, and the end of the Cold War. That would be Standard 9. Standard 10 and 11, you may see a few questions on the CST for these two standards. They're obviously much more modern. Standard 10 says students analyze nation building in the contemporary world, so talking about independence for the Philippines, for India, for Pakistan, the struggles that went with that, how these newly independent countries struggle with each other, India and Pakistan still having issues with each other. Standard 11, students analyzing the integration of countries into the world economy and the information, technological, and communication revolutions. So talking about the growth of radio, the growth of television, the growth of computers, the growth of the internet, how that has greatly changed the world that we live in. Information spreading quickly, computers and space satellites changing communications as well. So those are the 11 standards for world history. Make sure that the night before the test you get a good night's sleep, have a nice breakfast in the morning, make sure you get to school on time. Take your time with the world history section. It's only one day of testing on world history, but it's an important day. It helps Paris's CST scores. So good luck, make me proud.